Hello. I just wanted to talk a little bit about anxiety today, and I do want to put a trigger warning before I talk any further, because I'm going to be talking a little bit about what gives me anxiety, and so these are pretty intense and possibly triggering topics like SA and death and self-harm and different topics like that. So just if you're not in the headspace to hear that, totally cool. Click off right now. Um, but I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety for myself, and maybe if you are someone who has wrestled with anxiety, maybe this will help you, maybe not, I don't know. I also want to put in a preface that I am not a mental health professional. I do not have any degrees in mental health anything. Okay? So just take everything I say with a grain of salt, and if you like the concept of how I have been working through anxiety, talk to your mental health professional first. Ask yourself honestly if it would be more helpful or less helpful for you, okay? Because I gotta say, I did something similar when I was in a less healthy spot, and it did not help me. It made my anxiety worse, what I'm about to describe. So, only in this new headspace has it been able to help me, because I'm seeing things from a different perspective than I was. So, I'll start off by saying how I have just felt plagued with anxiety for the last couple days. It's also been raining here. Something to note, I feel like when it rains, everyone is like high stress energy, and maybe that's just me projecting, but it does seem like a lot of other people that I talk to talk about how they have anxiety and stuff during the rain. And so it's been something I've been struggling with really bad today, and it's actually gotten to the point today where it's made me like easily frustrated and kind of irritable. And so I was out here thinking, and I was like, dude, I need to figure out how to like handle this today, because I'm just avoiding it and it's not going away. It's just getting bigger and bigger. So I started thinking, and I was like, well, what really is anxiety when I think about it? Anxiety for me stems from fear. And it can be fear of anything really, but it comes from fear, and then letting myself ruminate in fear as worry, and then that worry becomes chronic, and that's what I call anxiety for myself. And sure, I guess anxiety is also kind of worry, but just for my sake, like chronic anxiety, is something that I've struggled with for a while. It would come and go though, so I didn't always feel chronic, but when I look back and I'm honest with myself at the patterns in my life, I just have certain triggers for my chronic anxiety, right? And so I feel like rain is definitely one of them. When other people around me are nervous too, I start to feel like nervous and anxious and stuff. And then, fear of like, whenever I leave my son somewhere, or I go somewhere with my son, or we're driving in the rain together, like fear of losing him, like him passing away, or being abused in any way, like that puts so much fear into me. And so I was thinking about it. I was really thinking like, well, okay, why am I getting stuck in the fear? And so for me, I started going through in my head, and I was like, okay, well, let's go through the worst possible scenario, right? Let's go to the worst possible case scenario. We're driving to Walmart or something, and I get into a car accident, and my son dies. Like, what do I... Obviously, that I wouldn't even really know what to do, but I started putting myself in all these worst case scenarios where I was having anxiety, rather, and really playing them out. And there was a point where I was like, wait, this is what I'm really so anxious about? Something that has like a 0.1% chance of happening? Like, this is what I'm letting keep my mind occupied? And so it kind of put it in perspective to me when I let myself play out those worst possible case scenarios, because I'm like, wait, this is what's giving me anxiety, something that's not likely to happen. But I want to say too, I do know that like before, when I was kind of just out of touch with reality because I was so depressed, it didn't seem, none of these things seemed unreasonable or unrealistic to me. I wasn't thinking straight, I wasn't thinking logically. I was just thinking about how sad and in pain I was. So, yeah, that's why I say, like, there's a time and a place, I think, for this strategy. But when you are in that healthier spot, but you still feel that residual anxiety kind of looming, and it doesn't really make sense, just examine it a little bit and see, like, it might be coming from some kind of unrealistic or delusional belief. And when you can confront that root, it's like, okay, well, now I'm actually not anxious. Like, okay, something I figured out too today is that a lot of the reason that I am nervous going to, like, grocery stores with my son is because I read this thing about, like, people following, like, mothers, especially, like, single mothers without a ring on, like, following them with their children around stores and, like, tagging their cars and, like, kidnapping them for sex trafficking and all, which is obviously terrifying, not great, and I'm sure it does happen, but it's not necessarily something that happens every single day at the Walmart I go to, you know? I mean, I guess it could, but just realistically, you know, like, I have been so hyped about something that's not probably gonna happen. And I mean, you know, you can never say never, of course, but it's just, it's been kind of silly and eye-opening for me to, like, really see where it's coming from. And I think a lot of times my chronic anxiety was coming from having those really crazy, specific, not super statistically probable fears, but they were so scary to me that I wasn't feeling the full fear of them, and I was just feeling the fear of feeling them, and that was causing the anxiety. Fear of feeling my fears, which just sounds so silly, but I really think that's what it's been for me in this stage. And so, you know, I'm still working through it mentally, but I wanted to share a little bit of where I'm at right now, because it felt kind of like a revelation for me to realize that I was anxious about feeling the fear of my irrational fears. And when I can sit and really go through those rational fears, be like, okay, let's just play out the scenario in my head. And we play it out, and I keep choosing to fight back, or to try and save my son, or to, you know, do everything I can. And eventually I'm going through this whole scenario that's, like, basically a movie in my head now, and I'm exhausted afterwards. And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably not going to happen in real life. Why am I so worried about that? And, you know, I'm weird, so this might not actually work for anyone. I don't know. But, worked for me, and I thought I would share it because it seems very unconventional, and you just never know. Again, though, I would talk to a therapist first, you know, before trying to do any of this on your own. And I know that therapy is not always accessible, and so if you don't have access to a therapist, maybe don't try this at home alone. I don't know, you can, I did, but if you're in active, like, depression, I wouldn't do this. If you're in, like, a period of your life where you're suffering from, like, severe crippling panic attacks, please don't do this. Do not go to worst case scenario. At that point, you are catastrophizing. And so, before I could do all this, I had to understand what catastrophizing meant, which means basically just, like, finding the worst case scenario and accepting it as reality. And I had to learn to call out and be aware when I was doing that, and being like, okay, this is actually not rooted in reality, this is just me catastrophizing, to be able to then use catastrophizing as a tool to be like, oh yeah, this is silly. So, I don't know, really just awareness is key with everything. And so I think if you are someone who's struggling with anxiety, I know it's going to be really hard, but when you are in those, you know, depths of anxiety, try and find some awareness, try and think about what triggered it, what's keeping you there, because anxiety, all emotions are supposed to come and go. Anxiety becomes an issue when it doesn't go, you know, because anxiety can be really good, it can save your life. Like, if you are crossing the road and a car's about to hit you, you should be anxious, so you run and don't get a hit, you know. But also too, it releases a lot of, like, chemicals that make us go into fight or flight mode. So if you're just, like, looking at a test and getting stressed out, like you need to run across the street to not get hit by a car, it's not doing your body any good. And if you're just living in anxiety about who you are as a person, it won't do any good either. Because chronic release of those fight or flight chemicals actually does significant physical damage to your body and brain. So, yeah. Awareness is key, and patience and grace for yourself. They can't hurt, right? I hope everyone has a good day. I'm going to enjoy this thunder and lightning. Bye.